I'm sorry, chat. I wanted to be on time, I swear to God, but YouTube wouldn't finish rendering the thing. Sometimes the website is a little bit more slow than usual, and it takes several minutes until I can click the go live button. You set up the stream, and then there's the gray button which tells you to go live, and you can't click it. Right, so I will show you something that I found to be very interesting. Happened today. Stranger Things. Grace Van Dien. I had to figure out who she is, and then I realized it's the coffee shop girl, right? Now, she accuses that one of the producers has issued a sexual request to her. So, she's now a Twitch streamer. Very successful one. She's got more subs than me. And she was talking about how she wants to give up acting in favor of Twitch streaming because one of the producers hired a woman, which then approached her and suggested a threesome. And what's interesting is that on Twitter, people were going after the Stranger Things producer. And this is exactly why Mob Justice is mentally deficient. She never said is the Stranger Things producer. She starred in many movies. She says one of the movie producers. Stranger Things is a TV show. I mean, listen to this.
For turning down acting projects and deciding to stream more. But the fact of the matter is the last few projects I've worked on, I didn't have the best experiences with some of the people I had to work for. And with streaming, I get to choose who I hang out with, who I talk to, etc., etc. Yeah. One of the last movies I did, one of the producers asked me to, he hired a girl that he was sleeping with, and then he had her ask me to have a threesome with them. So, that's my boss.
Okay. So, people are going after the wrong guy? At no point is she saying that it's the Stranger Things producer. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not, because Stranger Things, it's a TV show, and she's talking about a movie, right? So, different people. Secondly, I'm not even sure it's a crime what she's describing. If you're asked, do you want to do the cushy, and you say no, and they do not insist, I don't think it's a crime. Now, it depends. It depends on whether or not other projects of hers got canceled. So, if she says no to that, and then, she was supposed to have more interviews, or she was in business relationships with more people, and all of those businesses stop after she says no, then yes, that is workplace harassment, and she has a strong case in order to go for a lawsuit. It's also important to point out that if this type of behavior exists, it's most likely that other actresses have suffered similarly. So she could probably get them to testify. They could make a lot of money doing it. But my point is, it's Twitter justice is not justice. They're going after the wrong guy. There's a man that didn't do anything, or maybe he did, but not this thing. So this is why prosecution is more important. If this is actually true, if there is a producer in Hollywood, of all places, the bastion of morality, the place that we get wisdom from, and we got actors lecturing us on how to live our lives and be better men, if that is the case, then I do not want the guy fired. I want him prosecuted. And prosecution is beautiful. The person can bring on evidence, he can lawyer up, he can show his side of the story so that there is no doubt whether or not he is guilty after the book is being thrown at him. This, however, doesn't seem like justice. Going after the wrong person. The Stranger Things producer didn't seem to do anything. And I heard people saying, it's yeah, but if you're a producer, you're not supposed to date the staff. It's really? I don't think that really applies because, by that logic, no doctor should ever be in a relationship with a nurse. You know, like asking the person a question, like, do you want to do something after hours, is not illegal as far as I know. Unless you're in the military. Like, the military actually bans fraternization, right? So an officer is not able to fraternize with one of their underlings. But if you just ask, and once the person says no, you don't insist, I don't think that's a crime anywhere in the world. Again, it depends whether or not it affected her career in the long run. Still, you know, she does seem happy to be a Twitch streamer. She does seem to get a lot of subscribers. I'm pretty sure that after, you know, the press has wrote about her and gave her even more publicity, more people will subscribe. So it is what it is. Cops would have ignored it. No, you don't need to go to the cops because this is not a violent crime, right? Like there's no forensics that are going to appear. No, you need to file a lawsuit. You're being discriminated. So it's a different type of. It's not that cops have to. It's a crime in Scotland. I did not know that. Okay, so like if you're a doctor and you fall in love with a nurse, you're not supposed to ask her out because it's sexual harassment in Scotland. Because this is what we're talking about, right? So if you're the person that has power over someone else, right, like a business relationship, and there is a clear position of hierarchy, like you're not supposed to ask. What if it's in the reverse? Like what if it's a female producer and she asks Robert De Niro? Like, is that also illegal in Scotland? Yeah, it is a civil suit. Right, it is a civil suit what we're talking about. But I again, like, I find it really bizarre because a lot of relationships happen at the workplace. Like, I know a lot of family friends and a lot of acquaintances which got together at the workplace. And usually, yes, at the workplace there is hierarchy, but it like just because you're the superior of a person doesn't necessarily mean that you know you would do something to them if they say no. I mean, by this logic, let's say that my female boss, right, asks me to do something that's not work related. So she asks me to carry some luggage, right? So I have to spend the whole day in order to carry the luggage. Is that like her abusing her authority over me just because she happens to be the boss? Like, it's not in my work description to carry luggage, but because she is my boss and tells me to, I feel like I cannot say no. Is that abusive? I mean, I don't know. It is a difficult position, isn't it? Right? So it may be. Right? It may be. That is a good point. Yeah, it may be abusive. So I actually had that happen at the hospital. Before I finished med school, I also worked at a hospital as a statistician. You know, like I was doing the hospital statistics, and I was working at a computer. And the boss comes to me, the hospital manager, and tells me that there are some wheels, like actual car wheels, which were in the attic, and they were a fire hazard, so they had to be brought down into the storage. There was a fire in Romania at another hospital, so all of a sudden, like, that's the Romanian thing. Like, when a tragedy happens somewhere, all of a sudden, fire safety checks at all the other hospitals and blah blah blah, whatever. So there were some wheels that, like, car wheels, right? They had to be moved. Wasn't my job to move them. I wasn't hired to do that, but the hospital manager asks me to. Right? So is that an abuse from his point? I mean, I could have said no, right? But you're wondering, oh, will I piss him off? Surely, though, that is different than if the manager would ask me if I would let him to fuck me in the ass. Like, if he asks you to be fucked in the ass, pretty sure it's a lot easier to say no to that. And it's different. But it is what it is. Yeah, you could argue that it is abuse, right? But at the same time, if you're the boss, and you actually do have a lot of job, like, you have patience to see it, you gotta, right? But, like, you need to move some wheels from the attic, and you need to ask someone. Like, maybe you're asking from the point of view that maybe someone will volunteer, you know? You're not actually telling them to. Like, if you don't even think that the person might say, well, it's something that they wouldn't do, like it's an insult, right? Maybe they. It is what it is. You thought in mind that there may be consequences by saying no. You know what? I actually didn't. Unironically, it did not even occur to me. I was actually happy that I could do something else because I was bored. Like, I had absolutely nothing to do, and I was like, oh, well, might as well stretch my legs. But I don't think that I was, like, wondering from the perspective, like, will there be consequences if I don't? And even then, right, like, if you're asked to do something you're not supposed to do once, maybe you do it, right? Not sexual related, but we're talking about, like in this situation, you're asked to do manual labor when you're hired to work at a computer. So you do it once, you do it twice, but if it keeps happening, you can say no. And if the boss gets upset, well, the boss gets upset. But you're thinking, like, the next person that's going to come here is not going to put up with this shit either. Like, I'm hired to work at a computer. I'm not hired to make myself dirty by doing manual labor because I have business clothes that are presentable. I'm not dressed for manual labor. But yes, a suggestion with some weight behind it. Well, it's true, right? But again, like, how do you legislate that? Like, how do you make sure that this doesn't happen, right? Because by that logic, the boss should never ask the underling anything, right? Like, the boss should never become friends with the underling. Like, you would have, like, this bizarre level of separation between the boss and the underlings that's unreasonable. So yes, were they ambulance wheels? I don't fucking know. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I do believe they were ambulance wheels. Yes, it was probably for the hospital's ambulance. Like, if it happens to have a tire that's broke. Either that, or it may have been for the boss's car, because he drove a 4x4. So, it could be either of them. I don't know. But what I do know is that I carried them. Well, they weren't that heavy, because I could roll them, but still. Yeah, you hired me to do coding. Stop asking me to cook and do your laundry. That is perfectly accurate. Snake Dude for life. Are you a coder? Do you code? Contact me, baby. Contact me on DMs if you code. Give me a ring. Give me a buzz on DMs. Anyway, end up doing other people's jobs as well. Granted, that's why I owned as well, and you have to do that here. Yeah. It happens in a lot of workplaces. Right? You end up doing other people's jobs, and there is not much you can do about it. All right. So we talked about that. Now let's discuss the topic at hand. Or should we look at something else which happened? Man, it's been a slow week, hasn't there? Yeah, like not a lot of interesting news, but oh, here we go. Colin Kaepernick, my favorite man. I genuinely do not know how good of a football player he is, but I do know his politics. Colin Kaepernick accuses white adoptive parents of problematic upbringing perpetuating racism. So I just want to frame what's going on here. You got parents that adopted him, right? And they perpetuate racism. Like, if I was a racist, would I adopt a child that is of a different race than I am? I don't think I would be a very good racist. I might get kicked out from my racist community if I do that. Isn't that how it works? I'm not a racist, so I don't know how racists think. But I'm trying to imagine. Like, if I am a big racist, right? Like, wouldn't I get kicked out from the KKK meeting if I adopt a child that's outside my... Like, did racists drop their standards so much? Because I remember, like, growing up with American movies and they were depicting racism in it. And they had, like, some very strong standards of what it means to be a race. Like, they weren't a very inclusive bunch. But I guess now the racists in the United States have gone through diversity and inclusion tactics. So apparently the NFL quarterback, in an interview, he's come to terms with his racial identity while growing up in a white family. Changed the game. The former football player recalled disagreement with his parents that he attributed to racismus, calling his upbringing problematic. I know my parents loved me, but they were still very problematic. I think it was important to show that, no, this can happen in your own home. Kaepernick illustrated one specific example. Oh, of course, his hairstyle. Ah, I see. Oh my god, like the struggle is real. Holy shit. I can't imagine how it's like to have your mother dictate your hairstyle. That never happened to me or anyone else that I know. Like, having your hairstyle dictated by your parents when you're a kid is definitely something traumatic. It robs you of your sense of self. Are you even an individual at that point? If your mother comes in and with her own cash takes you to the hairstylist and says, like, this is how I want my little son to be cut. I wanted to be a rock star when I was a kid. I wanted to be like Mr. Hatfield. In order to punish people that are stealing the music that I have from Napster. I wanted, like, I was envisioning myself with a guitar in my hand and with a phone in the other calling my lawyer. And being like, ring, 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 ring. Sue the motherfuckers. You know, like, that's how I wanted to be. But my mother would not allow me to have long hair. She was thinking it's satanic. And I was like, but mom, Jesus Christ had long hair. Apparently, as long as I was under her house, I was under her rules. So it didn't matter if I was right or not. But I did suffer. Me and Mr. Kaepernick are kindred spirits. We have undergone the same struggle. Him from a racial perspective, I don't know from what type of perspective I had, but it was oppressive nonetheless. I feel for you, Kaepernick. I feel for you. We are connected. If you watch this video, please call me. We have so much to discuss. I want to break down in tears while I talk to you on the phone and explain to you how difficult life was for me the moment I had my hair cut by my mother. Without my approval. Like, nonsense. You're going to get your hair cut, boyo. Had to cut it. Inspired to braid his hair in cornrows like his hero, NBA. He's getting what rolls, his mom said in the graphic novel. Kaepernick said that after styling his hair this way, his mom warned that his hair was not professional. And he looked like a little thug. My mother said that I look like a Satanist. Which is worse? Being a Satanist or a little thug? The former football player turned social justice activist. Can you imagine? Like, without him, you do not have social justice. Like, he's a pillar of the American community. Like, there are people right now that are reaching to him the same way those slaves were reaching to Khaleesi in Game of Thrones. Going, Misa, 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 and they were touching. You know, like, this is the same. Those become spaces like, well, okay, how do I navigate the situation now? But it also informed me why I have my hair the way it is today. Oh my god, like there is such a beautiful story behind this haircut. You know, I am making a video game, as many of you know, and I need a screenwriter. And now I know who I'm going to get. I'm going to get Mr. Kaepernick, because if he can make such a beautiful story just by talking about hair, I think I can get him to talk about succubi. Clash Royale, laughing Kingimo, says Thomas. V, you know this man is race hustling. Maybe I should too, because it seems to be very profitable. This is why the black community is going to collapse on itself like the Roman Empire. Dude, it's like hold on a little bit. The Roman Empire was an organized institution. The black community is just a political... I don't even know how to say it. It's such a weird thing that happens in left-leaning identity politics, where they look at something and they call it a community. Right? Is it hierarchical? Is it organized? Like, do they all think the same? Do they have the same purpose and kindred spirits? I don't know. Maybe in America they do, because from what I understand, they have similar voting patterns to a certain degree, but I would still not compare it to the Roman Empire. Because there's nothing to collapse. Like, that's the thing. Like, when the Roman Empire collapsed, it's like, what does collapse? Well, the institutions collapsed, right? The government collapsed, and you don't pay taxes to the Romans anymore. That's what collapse happens. You don't pay taxes. Right? And they don't send soldiers, right? So there's no more Roman military. There's no more Roman prefect. You don't pay taxes to them. They don't protect you. That's what happened when they collapse, right? So what do you mean, like, when the community collapses? Like, I don't understand. Like, what? They would need to have some institutions, right, that would collapse. It's a very interesting thing when people talk about the Roman Empire collapse. They don't really explain what that is. And I explained it, I think, right? It's when you don't pay taxes. But when your house catches fire, there's also no one from the government to pull it up. It's when you get a little bit of anarcho-capitalism for a small while, right? Like, the government collapses, there's no more bureaucrats, there's no more politicians, there's no more military, there's no more police, and you have thugs and gangs in the street. That's what a collapse means. I love it, you know, like, everyone on Twitter that deals with politics, they will tell you, oh, let me tell you when the Roman Empire collapsed and why. And then you ask them, it's like, okay, but like, what does collapse mean? They don't know how to explain it. They literally do not know. No, the bread doesn't run out. Why would the bread run out? Like, if the government collapses, why would the bread run out? The bread still can happen, right? Like, your neighbor can still plant shit. Right? But like, okay, of course, you know, someone may steal from your neighbor. That's true. My dad didn't let me join the gang. Yeah, no taxes. You might have to pay tribute, though. You might have to pay protection tax. That's what they call it. Protection tax. Right? So you don't have the government anymore. You don't pay taxes to the government. But you may have like a couple of individuals which may or may not carry weapons, but they look intimidating, and they go to your store and they say, nice store you have here. Would be a shame if something happens to it. And you're like, okay, how much? It's called a shakedown. You probably want to be shaken down because the people that do the shakedown also take care of the minor crimes, right? Because you want stability. You don't like the fact that there's people coming in and stealing stuff. So you're like, okay, well, I don't pay taxes to the government. I pay taxes to Don Corleone now. Hopefully Don Corleone has a long and successful life, because if he doesn't, and you pay the protection money for that month, then there can be a new person like Don Michael, and Don Michael asks for his cut. So you now have to pay twice during the same month. Rome didn't fall in one day. It was a process. They were losing terrain and influence. Yeah, but like, if you're in the part where Rome loses terrain, that's what happens. You don't pay taxes to Rome anymore. I think I explained it a lot better than anyone explained it on Twitter. Yeah, they lose terrain. And it's like, alright, well, the Roman government doesn't have, unless you really want to. Like, if you want to travel to Rome, right? Like, you're in an area, you're in Dacia. You're in Dacia, the Roman Empire withdraws. It's no longer under Roman occupation. It's no longer under Roman territory. But you want to pay taxes to them. Nothing stops you. You can take a horse, travel there, pay the tax. You will pay the tax with bullets. Yeah, but they have bullets as well. Like, this is something that many people do not understand. It's like, I have bullets. They have bullets. Everyone has bullets. There's no more government. Like, literally, you can do anything that you couldn't do before, including spreading misinformation on social media. All right, let's look at the where is it? Korewa. Ah, the college dating divide. A study. I feel like Vosh. I'm reading studies. How can you tell if something is real? There needs to be a study. Like 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4 unless there is a study. V, I hate to say this, but as a black guy, oh my god. can you be my friend? No, seriously, I do not have a single black person as a friend because I don't have any acquaintances in Romania that happen to be black. And I need a black person as a friend because, like, when someone accuses me of racismus, I cannot state I am not racist. I have a black guy. I can't use that. Unironically, it's not like I genuinely like do not know black people. Do you understand this? Like, I do not. Actually, never mind. My bad. I know one, which is from South Africa. Very nice gentleman. Said that he will do a logo for my game. Hasn't come back to me yet. One day maybe he will. But until then, I'm breaking the friendship, so I don't have any friends. I have to say this, but as a black guy, as a libertarian, they think if you don't vote Democrat, something is wrong with you. I tried explaining to my own family members that not even in Zimbabwe, 90% don't vote that way. Yeah, I did talk about the voting pattern, did I not? But that's a cultural thing, right? Like, what I'm talking about is like, you know, just because you have a culture doesn't necessarily mean you can have a collapse, right? Like, for example, in America, you can have most people being Christians, right? And Christians, they all do things a certain way. They may even have, like, similar voting patterns. Like, if you look at the Amish, for example, maybe all of them don't vote at all. Or maybe the Amish vote in a way that's right-wing. But, like, the Amish do have a structure, right? Like, they all go to the church, and that is, like, the community. So if the Amish church would fall, then the community would fall. But the culture is separated from the actual structures. Right? Like, the culture can exist, can be propagated through people, from word of mouth. But in order for a collapse to happen, you need to have, like, some authority so that you can point out, okay, well, the authority isn't there, and therefore the collapse is happening. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not suggesting that there isn't, like, a culture that can exist. Black friends are overrated? No, because dude, some of the best YouTubers that do fighting games and anime, things that I'm into a lot, are black people. The more black people I know, the more likely I will be able to play fighting games with someone that will kick my ass. I mean, look at the people that win competitions. Mortal Kombat. Sonic Fox. Sonic Fox is his name. A furry. Got like this furry mask, goes there, beats up everyone, wins the prize. I want to be friends with someone like that challenges me to be better at Street Fighter 6, which is coming out this year. I'm not kidding, by the way. I'm not legit. Like, I want someone that can kick my ass at Street Fighter. That person has yet to be found. But one day. Sargon is part black, so I'm safe. American Outlier. Is Sargon part of the community or not? If he says it's part of the community, then he is. Anyway, right. We're talking about dating now. Africans are practically Nazis by American standards. Oh, you have no fucking idea. If you actually listen to some politics from Africa, like from African countries, like when I love it, like when I say this to a leftist, I say Africa, and they will be like, well, Africa isn't a country. It's like, okay, you don't understand what I'm trying to say to you. Any country in Africa, okay? Like, you take your pick. I'm allowing you, for the sake of the argument, to take your, like, any country you want. Do the eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing. Catch a tiger by the, right? Just pick any country you want in Africa. And look at their left-leaning politicians. Alright? Like, not even the right-leaning, the left-leaning politicians, the progressives one. And listen what they have to say about LGBT issues. Listen what they have to say about gay marriage. Right? Listen what they have to say about transgender issues. And then tell me, from an American standpoint, if they're far right or not. Yeah, it's very interesting. I would say, like, some of the most right-wing people in the world, when it comes to social issues, not economic, social, are Africans, right? And we're talking about people on the left. Where I'm not even talking about the people on the right. Like, dude, like, seriously, because it's part of my job. I have to listen to people talk about politics. And when they start talking about like there was like this very interesting BBC interview with I believe it was the president of Uganda, and the president of Uganda had the concern about economics, right? Like how can he get food on his people's table? Something that I respect, right? I mean, it's interesting, like having your leader to think about the important issues, like how do I put food on your table? That's great. This is what I want from a politician, answering the difficult question. And the BBC interviewer was like, but what about homosexuality? Let's talk about the gays. It was a very beautiful interview. I enjoyed it. It was fantastic. Very well edited as well. The face on the Ugandan president, you know, like struggling to understand, like, you know, like having to take him from like, he was in the zone. Like he was in the zone, he was in his reality there, right? Like how can he feed his people? Like that was his concern. You could see that his entire spirit was dedicated to this very beautiful and understandable, humane purpose. How do I put food on my people's table? And the BBC interviewer let's talk about the gays. And you can see, like, you know, like his brain is like trying to detach himself from reality and go into La La Land. You know, it's like things that maybe we can think of in 2500 after we solved everything else. You know, we solved the energy crisis, we solved the famine, we solved the economy, we solved it. Culture clash. Ah, that is correct. I love that word. Culture clash. Describes accurately what was happening there. It's like two people from different cultures trying to find common tongue. They didn't really succeed. Anyway, right. Let me go back to fucking Christ. Top chat. I'll give you the live chat. Here you go. Can we talk about the wait. Did Mr. American type something else? Because I don't want him to give me a super chat whenever he wants to get my attention. Like he already paid a lot, and I thank him for it. So now I want to see if he said something in the chat, so I can address. Because it's very interesting, like getting a different perspective. Unfortunately, he did not. But I am interested, like especially talking about Zimbabwe. I am fascinated about Africa recently. I think, unironically, a lot of people laugh about this, but I do think like Africa is set to become not a world superpower, but definitely like some nations in Africa are destined to become first world nations in the far future. Not even very far future. Like I will be alive when it happens. They have a space program. Do you know that? Many people don't know that. And by the way, first world nations like don't think about democracy and human rights. No, they will have like their own versions of political systems, some more authoritarian than others, but it will be good places to live. This is my prediction. Within 20 or 30 years. By the way, things are going. And it won't be necessarily because they're going to overtake the European Union and the United States. No. It's going to be because the European Union and the United States are going to lower when it comes to standards of living. And at the same time, the nations in Africa are going to raise. And you're going to reach an equilibrium. That's what I think. We'll see if I'm right or not. What is the question you are asking? No, I wasn't asking a question. I just wanted to see if you're in the chat so I can address what you have to say. Anyway, we must really want an African friend. Dude, shut up. Already have one. But he's on standby until he gives me the logo for my video game. The lack of potable water sources is a problem. There's a lot of problems. No, I know you're from Alabama, but you talked about Zimbabwe, so I think you're well versed in the subject. I don't believe a person has to be from that place in order to know about that place. You know, like I don't have to be from France in order to talk about French politics. You don't have to be from Zimbabwe in order to talk about Zimbabwe. In the 70s, after the Civil War, Nigeria was awesome. Ask me how I know. I don't want you to know how you know, but it is true. Yes. There were certain nations where things have gone backwards. A perfect example is Iran. If you see pictures of Iran from the 60s and the 70s, unrecognizable compared to today. American black culture comes from rednecks. It has no relation to Africa or Africans. Yes, I actually saw Thomas Sowell's video about it. Did not read the book, but I do understand that he did write a book about it. And it is true. Like, if you look at people from Africa, especially people from Nigeria, and I think even Niger, right? 2 different countries. You need to be careful. They do very well once they immigrate into the United States. Like, they do far better than the people who have been in the US for a long while. But anyway, I do want to point out that this is my prediction. And people laugh at me when I say it, but I definitely support what I mean. Several African nations, by the time that I'm going to be old, are going to be considered first world nations. Like, there will be people from Europe and from the United States. Now, maybe not from the United States. There will definitely be people from Europe that will want to immigrate into those nations because it's going to have high standards of living. Anyway, right. Botswana. Good example. Look at Botswana. Not the only one, by the way. South Africa could have been. But unfortunately, they started applying a lot of ESG stuff. Their ESG score is very high, but their crisis and their problems also high. Anyway, right. America becomes the new China? No. Or proxy wars from China and Africa. It's not really China's style to do proxy wars. Like, China is more interested in trade. The way China does its empire is very similar to the Portuguese. Like, they will loan money to a country, and then they will say, pay us back the loans, and the country goes like, well, we cannot. And they will be like, okay, well, then give us your port for the next 90 years. And then they take the port, they bring their military to guard the port, and they set tariffs. And that's how the Chinese empire is run. It's by having access to important trade routes and having tariffs. No need for conquering stuff. No, you just make money. You bring the wealth into your nation by doing this. That's how China does things. And of course, they also buy land, but that's a different story. Anyway, right. Botswana literally needed a dictatorship that was benevolent. It happens in human history, but very rarely. Let me read the college divide. Jesus. I don't want to talk the racial divide. I want to talk the college dating divide. Close to half, 45% of college-educated single women say their relation status is largely due to an inability to find someone who meets their expectations. Yeah, so I will tell you something that I noticed in real life. In times of woes like we have now, a truck driver can earn far more than an educated person. So, for example, during COVID, in California, I had the truckers telling me, because they speak to me. So the truckers commune with me, and they told me that they were making $6,000 a week. Now, it was a lot of work. Like, they had to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, but like $6,000 a week? Holy fucking shit, right? Meanwhile, university graduates were making dick because they had to stay at home and stay safe. Plumbers, another profession, very important. They make a lot of money. But the question is, do you think a university graduate, a lady, a mademoiselle, right? So you have a beautiful Chiquita, right? This lady, she graduates university. She's a lesbian dance master. PhD. Do you think she's going to marry a truck driver? Assuming that the truck driver even makes more money than her. Like, no one hires her. Right? No one is interested in giving her a job. Demo, shkushi. She gets to meet a truck driver. There was actually this funny thing where someone posted on Twitter and people were laughing. Like, this farmer gave this girl cheese, right? So he met this girl, the city girl, and gave her like a huge wheel of cheese. And she was like laughing about it, right? And she was posting it. And I'm looking at that wheel of cheese and I'm thinking $3,500? Like, you're holding around $3,500, lady. It was expensive cheese, by the way. And it wasn't, it was grown naturally. Walmart is now offering truck drivers $100,000. Jesus fucking Christ. So, can you imagine, right? Like, you get, like, this truck driver that makes $100,000 per year, I assume. And then you have, like, this lady which graduated social studies. Do you think she's going to date the truck driver? From my personal experience, no. Because what happens is the social status dictates that if you're educated, you're better than people without education. And this is something that happened in my country after the fall of communism. And it's the idea you need to go to work. Sorry, you need to go study to avoid doing the menial work. Like that's what they would say. They would say the quiet part out loud. To avoid doing the menial work, like the work of the peasants, you have to get educated, right? So when you go and you get the education, they literally think that they are better people because they got the university degree, they got the piece of paper. And this is not just for women, it's for men as well, by the way. Like they think that they are better human beings because they have that piece of paper. And it comes with an arrogance, it comes with a I'm better than you attitude. And because of that, they're not going to be interested in dating someone lower class. I mean, we moved away from feudalism, but it still exists. You still have people that were like, I'm not marrying a peasant. Even if the peasant makes more money than them. And the same thing with the farmer and the cheese. You know, he gave me cheese, but like, it was very valuable cheese. College-educated women are far more likely than those without a degree to say a partner's political views, personal habit, and current financial situation are important considerations. Yeah, so when you go to a college, they don't educate you. Educate you means that you would have the tools to think for yourself, right? Like that. Like, what does an intelligent person mean? It means a person that's a problem solver. That's what an intelligent person means, right? So, like, if you are on a deserted island, you're shipwrecked and you're with an intelligent person, he will help you survive because he knows, right? Like, he looks at the problem, he solves them. What is a college-educated person? A person that knows how to parrot shit, right? Like, their university professors told them something, and they know how to reproduce what was being told. But in reality, they're not intelligent. They're not smart. You just know how to parrot. And because of that, like, part of the parroting is, this is the type of politics required to make a decent person. This is the thing that you need to expect, right? Like, as a woman, you shouldn't lower your requirements. Which in some cases, you know, like, everyone should lower their requirements. If you have a job, right? You got a job. And you want to hire someone. Like, let's say you want to hire someone with 10 years of experience that knows how to do 5 different levels of code, and this is the money you want to offer them, right? And you have the job open, and no one applies, you gotta lower stuff, right? Either you increase the wage, or you lower some of the requirements, but you can't just wait like that, because then you can't run a business. Dating is very similar to business. In fact, dating, I would say, is the interview. Zlixion, thank you for the $5. That is exactly what we were sold in the US growing up. Yeah, it is true. I told my wife, it's like, look, when and if we have a baby and the baby grows, telling the baby to go to university might not be necessarily the best option. It could be, depending on the university. But teaching him to be an electrician or a plumber is also a valid choice. And my wife agreed, because I showed her the statistics. Yeah, it's obedience training is what it is. Half of college-educated women say that it would be impossible or very difficult to date someone who held a contrary opinion to abortion versus 1/3 of women without degree. This is an American thing, by the way. The topic of abortion never came up in my country. With any woman that I dated ever, I think the only time the topic of abortion came up is when a woman basically told me that she's pro-life and she would never do an abortion, so I should be careful using the rubber. And I was like, okay, that's fair. That's legit. Right? Like, she wants to be responsible. I shall be responsible as well. The few life decisions are more consequential than those we decide to partner up with. Yet in previous era, Americans made these critical decisions very early in their lives. I think this is false, because in the previous era, these decisions were kind of made for you. Even after feudalism, your family kind of decided like who you're going to be dating, right? So in the past, you didn't make these like the idea of marrying for love is a very romanticized and also modern take. Like before, marriages were for alliances and economic reasons. Today, Americans are waiting longer to pull the trigger on marriage, and increasingly for going marriage altogether. Yes, because again, in the past you had the social pressure. American outlier, you're going to end up poor. You're not going to be libertarian for long. You're going to support welfare and left-wing governments if you keep giving me all of your wealth. I appreciate it though. Thank you so much. But still, you're going to get a lot of buyer's remorse. Like, save some for yourself. You'll feel bad about it tomorrow. I wish I could date, but unfortunately for me, my ethnic group are political walking zombies, to put nicely. I just am going to save my money and become a passport bro. I guess it depends on the city you are. I actually had this problem with a lesbian subscriber of mine. I don't know if she still listens. She likes to lurk. But if she listens, contact me. I have succubi to show you. So she's a lesbian, and she's from California. The problem is that she is a right-wing lesbian. So her dating pool shrinks considerably. Because as you can, right, you kind of notice the predicament that she is in. Right? Like, she can't choose to the fact that she's attracted in other women, and she also can't choose the fact that the women around her happen to be leftist social justice activists. So, I do feel for her. I don't know if she managed to find a significant other, but I do hope that she finds a wife. Because she's a very nice lady. Maybe I should hook her up. Are there any other ladies in the chat that happen to swing that way? I can introduce you to someone nice. I can vouch for her. She's very nice. I don't know how she looks like. Never asked. Do not care. But as a personality-wise, she's very wise. Very nice. Right-wing lesbian. Nice oxymoron. Yeah, like, she believes in right-wing ideology. Well, how is that an oxymoron? Like, she believes in less taxation. She doesn't buy into identity politics. She believes in Jesus. I don't know if she believes in Jesus, actually. I never talked about religion, but I assume she does. Because right-winger. My dude, I am data engineer. Look up the salary, so it's fine. Oh, well. Excusez-moi, then. Excusez-moi, I'm just a humble streamer. For me, it's a lot how much you gave me, so I thank you so much. She sounds pretty based. She is pretty based. This is what I'm trying to explain to people. She is very based. But unfortunately, she is surrounded by people who she does not consider to be based. As such, she finds herself in the dating predicament. Jesus do not support the gay either. Yeah, but Jesus also does not support people who judge others. Huh? Vjorp. What did Jesus say about judging others? Huh? Did Jesus say you can cast the stone? Huh? Why are you casting the stone, Vjorp? You're casting the stone. What would Jesus say about that? It depends, though. Like, apparently in the Chinese Bible DLC, I'm not kidding, that actually happens. Like, they translated the Bible and they added to the stone casting thing, right? So like there is this person that is about to get stoned, and Jesus says, let that person without sin cast the first stone, and no one throws the stone because everyone is with sin, right? But in the Chinese DLC, Jesus himself, after everyone leaves, starts throwing stones, and another person asks shocked, like, Jesus, what are you doing? And he says, yes, it's true, those without sin should not cast the stones, but if no one would cast the stones, there would be no rules. And without rules, there would be criminals. It does help with my game, it is true. I'm a little bit demoralized now because my developer, which I want to work with, very amazing person, huge qualifications as well, professional, told me that another gaming company is courting him. Scared me a little bit. Made me a little bit afraid. But anyway. It's not the social justice Bible. It's the Chinese Bible. Chinese people are not social justice. They call the other... They call them Bai Cua. Bai Cua. Bai Cua. I'm not going to go to social justice. Bai Cua. Sounds really nice. Bai Cua. Bai Cua. Huh? Not surprised that China would corrupt a moral message. There's once was a joke of Maria casting the stone and Jesus was angry because of his mother. That is, you know, like if Jesus said, like, let the person without sin cast the first stone, right? Like the Virgin Mary. I mean, it depends. I think the Catholic believes that she is without sin, but the Orthodox don't. So I'm not sure, but I think like, yeah, like the Orthodox do not believe that the Virgin Mary is without sin. They believe that only Jesus is without sin. So it would be interesting because like if that's true, if the Catholic believes that she's without sin, then yeah, she could have thrown the stone. Like if she throws the stone, does she commit the sin? Anyway. Well, no, because Jesus, like, throwing stones is not hypocritical, because, like, he is without sin, right? So, like, he can actually throw them. Like, let the person without sin cast the first stone, and he can cast the stone, because he's... It doesn't contradict, it's consistent to the narrative. Like, the people on EFOP, Rags and Mahler, have nothing to complain about. Some dude in the back tosses the stone and says, like, I'm perfect, walks off like a... I think, like, in that situation, the people really didn't want to stone that lady. Like, that's the way I could explain it. Like, they didn't want to do it, but it's like they felt pressured into doing it. I have friends that can code, but it depends if you can convince them. I don't want to convince anyone. I just need a backup person. Like, I need a number 2 in case the first one doesn't go through. Mary wasn't without sin. That's Catholic heresy. See? See, I told you it's Catholic heresy. There we go. Orthodox chads keep winning. I think evangelicals keep winning as well. Don't get mad, Catholics. I'm joking. Dude, you know, I will tell you why Catholics don't have a right to get mad. I will tell you immediately. So if you're a Catholic, look, I respect your faith and all of that. But before going to people in my chat and starting accusing them of being unbelievers, please fix this issue first. Alright? Like, I'm just telling you, clean up your house first, you know, like, fix this problem. Okay? And once you fix this problem, you can whine at other people in the chat who are disagreeing on whether or not the Virgin Mary was with sin or not. Right? Like first, I don't know how you handle this. Theological debate. Pray for him. Pray for it. Okay, I got it. If you're a Catholic, pray for the Pope. All right, pray for his salvation. Cause like this is not okay. I mean, this symbol, the hammer and sickle, has persecuted Christians around the world. Like, we're talking about tens of millions of people dead under various communist regimes due to their religious beliefs. That's my take. Right? So, like, after you're done with this, then you can go into my chat and complain of whether or not the Virgin Mary was with sin or without. Where were we? Hashtag not my Pope. Hashtag not my Pope. In before YouTube puts new TOS, like denying the papal, denying the papacy. Can one be Catholic without acknowledging the Pope? Good question. Because, like, you can have, like, other religions where you deny, like, the representatives. So, for example, evangelicals, right? Like, evangelicals do not believe in priests. They have pastors, but you can deny the fact that a pastor speaks the word of the Lord. Because they don't even claim to. Like, they're just there in order to do Bible studies and stuff, right? So in an evangelical situation, they don't have like the same hierarchy, and you can say, well, yeah, this pastor I don't like, which is fine, but I don't think you can do that in Catholicism. I don't think no he's God's vicar on earth, Zenith. You can't choose not to acknowledge him. Like, he has the throne of Saint Peter. Naruhodo? Wasn't this Pope a DLC? I don't know. He was, It's like, when you get a video game, and then they patch out a character, and they replace it with another. Like, Shadow Warrior. Right? Like, Shadow Warrior 3 had a voice actor that was then later patched on, because the first one was problematic. So you got the Nazi Pope, which passed away recently, I understand. Like, he was in Hitler's Youth, wasn't he? Am I wrong? Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I remember, like, people were calling him the Nazi Pope because of that. And he steps down, right? Like, no one knows why he stepped down. Clearly wasn't his health, because he managed to live a good, prosperous life for several years to come, so it wasn't that. Very rarely do popes step down. It's usually a position for life. So he steps down, and then immediately you have this gentleman, which also came under specifically weird circumstances, because it takes for several days for a new pope to be nominated. It was like, first day, bam. People knew. I am right. Okay, so the Nazi Pope. I did not. Do you think they found something that he did? Like... Because, like, it's painfully obvious from any person watching that's a little bit more cynical to say, yeah, he probably got blackmailed to step down. Like, they blackmailed him to do it. Look into the Pope education, all commies. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it depends what you understand by commies, but like they probably didn't have their education in the Soviet Union. I think the current Pope has dirt on all the cardinals. I mean, isn't that how it's supposed to go? Paparazzi stepped down because of a progressive coup in the Vatican. The Pope was chosen on the first try. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely... It's not unheard of. Like, they have chosen popes before in the first try. But what's also interesting is that the current Pope wasn't a very famous figure. Like, most people didn't know who he was. I mean, yeah, they knew who he was as a cardinal. But, like, he wasn't an influential person. All of a sudden, he pops up. And he's one of the most progressive popes that the world has ever had. I mean, on every single progressive issue, besides abortion. Apparently, he doesn't want a schism in the church. Okay. But besides abortion, environmentalism, immigration, when it comes to criticize nations, criticizes America, never criticizes China. Like when it comes with the Hong Kong thing, he didn't criticize China at all. Doesn't criticize Islamic nations, criticizes America though. Under Trump. Didn't like the wall. You know, if he didn't like the wall, he could have just uprooted the wall from the Vatican and give it to the Americans. It's like, oh, well, if you're against walls and you don't like walls, why don't you give your own? Like, you don't need it. Give it to the Americans. They do need it. Pope John Paul I was the best pope, not the second they killed. Wasn't there like a case in history where there was one pope which passed away, and then the next pope declared the previous one a heretic? They unburned his body, and they unearthed his body and they burned it. I think like that actually happened. A little bit confusing, right? Because like if they're God's vicar on earth, like what does that say? It's like the first vicar got it wrong and the second vicar got it correct, or was it the other way around? China has wall. China has a really great wall. China has a better wall than Trump's. Pope John Paul II. Ah, was it? There was another pope which had orgies in the Vatican. But anyway, right. Thank you guys for watching. I need to go make my other 2 videos. Hopefully it was entertaining. Thank you for the donations. And as usual, I will see you in the comment sections. I need to wait for a little bit before ending the